First of all, let me answer the question. You said some people who started NRM or who joined have left. The NRM was never and is never meant to be a prison. That when you come in, you stay in it infinito. Did you read the late Major General Pecos Kuteza's book, How I Saw It? There are many reasons why people went to the bush. Some had dates. They could have been running from creditors.
Majambere has been complaining that dates are killing him, that he needs the president to help.
I know Majambere very well. He hasn't been straight with his business and also political mobilization. But Majambere. I know him very well. He's one of
we're
those.
On phase 5, don't go phase 2.
Yes. Now, so people are free to come and leave. It's not meant to be a prison. There are many reasons that people. But also, every organization, you expect hot heads. I happen to think that Mr. Kizabesije must have been one of those ambitious hot heads. Because of the people who have been running NRM, have the majority left NRM? No. It is the extreme minority, even if you were to consider at leadership level, extreme minority that have left the NRM. And ask, what was their own record in the NRM? What was their record?
They joined them for.
Those of us who know, who have the records of many people. I happen to have been among those keeping records of the NRM since December 1999.
So
but it's not our practice to come here and say who's
so
in the national,
which date was running
with the records. But have we gone 360? No. What I can say, like Honorable Minister said, there are bad elements, there are bad practices. Our standard procedure is that we handle bad elements. Do we have occasions when bad practices slip through our hands? Yes. There are cases where things are not handled well, which we must own and which we do own. 360, what is the dominant
What are those elements? What are those elements that slip through?
No. The Honorable Minister has just said, and I have said so, there have been cases that suspected lawbreakers have been handled in manners that are not consistent with the law. They have been handled in a manner that is not even consistent, even common sense. They have been handled in a manner that leaves even NRM embarrassed. So there are those cases to which we own and we correct. So when you say 360, what is the
you say that the arrest of Jakana, now deceased, would be one of those? Would you say?
No, Jakana in particular,
Jakana, the son of Naduli.
I have not followed, but what I found the tail end of it, because to the best of my knowledge, I saw the magistrate, grade 1, Overwhere is the one who released Jakana from a prison. When I see somebody leaving Uganda prison service, prisons, I know he has gone through courts of law. The earlier arrests I did not follow, but there are many cases that have emerged where particularly security hasn't handled people well. There are many cases where we have acted in good faith, but with the mistakes. There are many instances where we have not made good to our own pledge, and we will own up to that. Now, when you say 360, what is the dominant practice in government, in the NRM, in Uganda today? I can give NRM 70, 80% in the things that we promised we shall do, or how we shall handle Uganda on governance, on rule of law, and so on and so forth. That's why the NRM and its leadership is returned at a very, very high percentage each time, because majority of Ugandans are satisfied. Secondly, while these infractions go on, I don't believe that is not happening in Gulu. We had 20 years of war in Gulu. How come we never saw where political leaders organize people to take the law into their hands to beat up UPDF soldiers. We never saw. We never saw it. These grievances that my brother, Honorable Mwanga Kivumbi, is talking about in Buganda, people, land being taken, something has been not fulfilled. How come we are not receiving the same type of response in the other parts of the country? And Honorable Mwanga Kivumbi, and I think this is how they have been, and this is why I'm saying politically organized. Mm-hmm. Somebody sells land. Let us take Luwero, where we all know they made big contribution to the war that brought the NRM. Hasn't the NRM actually attended to Luwero? Or have some people from Luwero, or indeed from Buganda, shortchanged the people of Buganda in terms of service delivery? If you have sold your land, I'm the heir to my father, for example, if I may say so, and we agree to sell family land, and then I shortchange my brothers, am I going to shift the burden to government of Uganda?
And claim that your land has been
That's the dominant feature here. People who have cheated their family members now come up and say it is the government of Uganda, it is the Banyankore, but who has sold the Banyankore the land? So that you, the Muganda, or you, the Baganda family members, have nowhere to earn a living. Who has sold the land? It is you, the family members. So there is transferred anger where people don't want to own up their own internal failures. Well, we said here the other day when we were with the Nganda here, in the 60s and 70s, Buganda was the food basket, particularly our local foods. How come that today Buganda is no longer the food basket for matoke, for coffee, for cotton? Buganda was producing cotton. You travel from here through to Luwero, what do you see? You see bushes. All these things we are complaining about, people are going to Middle East. Go and check. 80-90% of the people who have gone there who are complaining of mistreatment are from here. They have sold land.
What has gone wrong?
So what's gone wrong? And leadership, especially middle and lower level leadership.
Middle and lower level, top, middle and lower level leadership over the last so many years has been under the NRM. So what has gone wrong?
I am you see, NRM brought democracy. Part of that democracy is that you at family level, you manage yourselves, not government. There's no law which says the government of Uganda will prevent you from converting family assets into other forms of wealth. And the government of Uganda is not going to keep its eye on the conversion you have made. How are you using it? But we expect you, the family members, to be reasonable.
Actually, in the 60s, it is the Bashiga.
So,
and the Bafumbira used to come and dig here and create wells. But we have since stopped that. We come here for education. And when you look at the Buganda here, 30 kilometers from the center, just people are hunting squirrels and edible rats. The young people have run in town to ride the borders, go into garages. So the leaders, instead of you mobilizing violence and so forth, I think you must concentrate on mobilizing our people here.
I just want to conclude with you. Have we made 360? No. Yes, some mistakes are being made, but they are in the extreme minority. Should we correct them? Absolutely. We should correct them. And if that 30%, 20% is what is causing the implosion that we are seeing in this area, we should pay adequate attention to. And in my assessment, both the government and the NRM political machinery, we are not paying adequate attention to what is going on around here. You have seen this gentleman is saying they are going district by district. Is the NRM secretariat, for example, or the NRM parliamentary caucus knowing very well that in the last election, we lost Buganda. We conceded ground to a very negative, hostile opposition group. Are we building effort to go back and make outreach?
We'll be discussing
so that. And do what the Mwanga Kivundu is
that's the next topic we're
poisoning
going to.
The population.
That's the next topic we're going to after we have heard from the Honorable Ssemuju Nganda and Honorable Mwanga Kivumbi. But I'll take a message from Frederick T. Musementa, who says he's co-founder Uganda Dialogue Arena, and he says, unfortunately, your panelists tend to agree that there is indeed a problem. Let me re-echo that what we need is truth-telling, national reconciliation, and roundtable discussions. In fact, it's long overdue. Most people engaged in the acts of intolerance are young people who are mainly unemployed. Unemployed. So their needs, give them realistic hope, invest in sports and arts industry. Where do we need to be putting our focus, Ssemuju Nganda?
Before I come to that, I take a statement from the Honorable Baryomwoosi that the Uganda, 30 kilometers from me, are just hunting squirrels. I'll give you a copy of a book the Honorable Zindana gave me about Vietnam and America. When the Americans were in Vietnam, they were accusing the Vietnamese of being lazy. That's why they were poor. That book will tell you what happened to Americans. So do Uganda become lazy when Museveni becomes president? So that's when they become lazy. And for the last so many decades, they were not lazy. But when Museveni became president, they became lazy. That all their lives, you are the reason they are existing. See that level of arrogance by Baryomwoosi. Anyway.
No, but it is a fact that it's never cheating.
I thought you had your time, and I kept quiet not because not because I didn't have something to say, but out of respect, I allowed you to speak.
It's not you.
And I invite you to do the same. As you allow us to continue hunting squirrels. What you've seen, these reactions from people, wherever they have happened, I have said the solution will start with the state. Because once the state begins acting criminally, and you have government officials giving witness that there are cases when they have acted criminally, and then you are demanding the population to play by the law, it becomes very difficult.
But as a leader, as a political leader, yourself, the Honorable Mwanga Kivumbi and the other people in the opposition, don't you have a responsibility to shape the kind of one conversation that we have, to mobilize the young people away from anger? Must you encourage them to react the same way that the state is reacting to them? Is dealing with them?
The state has a duty to set standards and then ask and make sure that everybody acts by those standards.
And you have an opportunity, you and Honorable Mwanga Kivumbi and Honorable Baryomwoosi, sitting in Parliament to cause that conversation to happen there so that it doesn't spill over into acts of anger that play out in the population, don't you?
Of course, what you're asking is the wish. But the state and state actors have a duty to do the things that you are asking. Even if I go one television station after another preaching, please don't do this, don't do this.
I'm asking the conversation in Parliament.
But the Parliament itself is invaded. So you've forgotten so quickly that even that Parliament was invaded. The Baryomwoosi that you're talking about here, you've forgotten when he was arrested for committing no crime by Museveni, and then kept him at Ginger Road without sandals. I went to visit him. So he's been a victim himself. Did I find you in the sandals? Even in the sandals, they stopped you. So once the state begins acting criminal, even those who come here to speak for it, they are going to be victims. I remember this one of when he was crying, his driver had been kidnapped the same way they kidnap other people. I was with him on radio crying. So we will
You
all
can be
become.
diplomatic, eh?
We will all become. Am I lying? Am I lying? And I say sorry publicly.
Ssemuju,
Once the state begins acting criminally, everybody is going to be a victim. So that's where we need to start from. The Museveni, who was very angry with extrajudicial killing, with torturing of people. The other day, you saw him on TV. Said, security people don't even back at people. What did he do when Kakwenza was beaten? Every inch of his body was wounded. Did people who beat Kakwenza, did they get arrested? Where are they? In which court were they taken? Don't we know them? People who went to arrest Naduli's son, grabbed him and threw him, and then for the next 1 week, we didn't know where he was. Don't they exist in Uganda? So if the state wants to act according to the law, you start. I remember Kano Sura Semakula when, I don't know that it was a Chinese or a Japanese who was killed in Teso. There was a field court martial, and in 2 hours, a conviction. And in the third hour, firing squad. This is how the NRM used to act in Fonopono, if you are forgotten. That's how they used to deal with the criminals. Today, the criminals are the ones who are running the state. They are roaming large in town. They can grab whoever they want, beat you, and then they can throw in court to be processed. Then you have no moral authority to enforce standards because there are no standards to follow. So what you see at funerals is a response to a criminal state. And that's where, for me, the solution, that's where we need to begin with the solution. Get the state to act as a state. Because if the state begins acting like a state under Amin and under Obote, it's going to be very difficult to stop anyone from doing anything. So you, the state actors, both of you, I am very happy you have been victims before. So when you are internally there, please speak to your colleagues to stop acting criminally.
You're also a state actor. You are not aware?
I am an opposition, even within the state. My role is different, and I do my role. Actually, my role is to speak. Yours is to physically stop the things.
A member of parliament?
Yes.
Only to speak.
What does an MP do?
You pass laws?
I don't run the police.
You hold
I don't run the military.
You hold the government accountable.
By talking. But for you in the cabinet, for you in the state house, please go and ask your colleagues to stop acting criminally.
Ssemuju.
Okay, we
are the ones who have admitted that there are instances, many, where we have fallen short. And in some cases we have corrected, yes. And we do commit that we shall continuously improve. It would be telling the public a lie that we would not make mistake.
I agree, Mr. Ofan.
But also,
when you had ministers accused of corruption, they were arrested and taken to Luzira.
By which government?
By this government.
Yes.
And I want to thank this government. The Honorable Captain Mike Mukura, the Honorable Jim Moyes, Dr. Bukenya. I want to see this government arresting security officers who are beating and kidnapping people.
Yes, and
including ministers. And then we will be happy.
Yes, and for the umpteenth time, we have said that when those things happen, it is individual government officers making mistakes, but not on behalf of the government. And there are corrective mechanisms, disciplinary measures within the apparatus of government to correct those. That's why when all says yes.
Let me ask one quick question before we switch topics. And as Honorable Minister, I want to put the question to you.
Yes.
Outside of your government job,
yes,
in the party where you sit on the Central Executive Committee,
yes,
are these kinds of conversations you're having to ask, as a political party, not as a government, what is driving this anger among Ugandans? Why is this happening at the home of a historical member? What we need to do? Someone you're sitting with in SEC, who was sitting in SEC. These conversations you're having within the party.
I have said our friends, the opposition, have chosen to mobilize politically using a belligerent, hostile, violent approach, which I have said will not help them either. Because on our side as a government, as a party, we do not condone wrongdoing. We do not condone torture. We do not condone illegal arrests as a policy, as a government. So when those happen, it is individual, indisciplined public officers, security officers, who should be accountable. But you cannot say because a security officer has acted irregularly, and therefore you say he was sent by government. So we must distinguish what the government stands for, what the policy, the procedure of government is, and what mistakes individual officers commit. And they are right to say, yes, if that individual commits a mistake, then he should be punished. And indeed, many security officers, many public officers are punished. That's why he's got the examples of ministers.
So can we know who was punished for the beating of Kakwenza?
We can come and give you records. All right, when the security officers are tried, we don't have to pin the information on the walls.
So they are tried in heaven.
Within police, within the army, within intelligence, officers who breach the law are punished.
So they are punished.
And then NRM
is tried in heaven.
UPDF is on the record.
Charles.
Yes,
Yes.
As you come in, I would also like us to move to the other part of the topic of the discussion that we wanted to have.
Let me first make a small input.
Yes, you make the input. Once you make that input, also proceed to talk about the mobilization that you're doing, because we see a lot of jostling for, especially Buganda now, that all political actors, all political parties, the National Unity Platform, the FDC, the NRM is beginning to mobilize around here. I think setting the ground for.
We've dealt with only one leg. You see, I come from Ruwero Triangle and Honorable Ssemuju. Butambara is part of Ruwero Triangle.
Yes.
Now, we've dealt with the ideological question where NRM came in as a resistance. The second thing that happened was the gun. Remember, Honorable Ssemuju, when we were about to join university, there was a program called Chaka Mchaka. It was intended to demystify the gun. That nobody holding a gun, because you hold one, should go out of your way to use it against the will of the people. Now, today, the gun that was supposed to liberate our people is the one being used to evict them, to arrest them, to kill them. The third leg, and I'm speaking about issue that the ordinary people will tell you, but these people Banunuzi. Then there was also another leg of Banunuzi. Liberators. Now, the Banunuzi, who came to liberate the people, 30 years have returned to the people with bags of money, going by the principle of willing buyer, willing seller, whereby after 30 years, they failed to provide the necessary services that the people need, like education, health care. This week, I was with the Prime Minister in Gombo Hospital. And you know the bone of contention, whether in the Gombo Hospital, there should be, within the same public hospital, there should be a private clinic wing. Within the same ward, there should be curtains put, and wananchi who have the money should pay for those, enjoy those ones, and they should have another car window where you can't buy drugs, whereas the other wananchi are dying now. People sell land in Uganda to pay school fees. It's because the government failed. People are selling land in Uganda to foot medical bills. You've just opened this talk show with an absurdity. Do you know the absurdity? That someone who has a treatable illness somewhere, is it in the food patrol? The whole speaker now has to go out and give, is it $10,000 US? The army, 10,000?
5,000.
5,000. What is the state? Now,
The Honorable Mwanga, the state corrupts. I was in Murago this week.
Yes.
In Murago personally. And they told me the MRI in Murago is not functioning. after go and
But you,
find it.
you also on record at some stage for having praised the services in Malago.
Yeah,
He
and
took-
there are
he took
services.
his mother there, and he came and
It
praised.
cannot be a contradiction.
And he was harassed by the opposition
I am
already.
the same person telling you, because me, I go to Murago, and I have said it many times. This week I go there. So do you want me to lie? When I went there and it was okay, I told you it was okay. This week I go there, the MRI in Murago is not functioning. So they said, you go and seek that service
Private.
outside and then come back in a national referral
I want to know from one so that we take a break.
Now, the liberators,
They can break it down,
the
yes.
liberators, okay, today owns square miles of land, which was formerly owned by the people they wanted to liberate.
name them.
And now the difference,
You
and,
know them.
I know them, and you know them.
have the
Baryomwoosi.
courage to face the
And
camera
they've-
and say so and so.
Honorable Mwanga Chivumbi,
We start
did you
with
just
Mr.
say-
Museveni.
Yes.
Did you
Who
just
owns
say
Mr. Museveni?
all villages in
Yes,
Goma?
in Goma.
Hold a moment.
Yes. Isale. Here in
Nakaseke.
Nakaseke.
Hold
Did
a
he
moment.
buy?
Hold a
Did he
moment.
buy that land?
So who else? So the
Who else?
list is available.
The list is available.
Honorable Mwanga
Yes,
Chivumbi,
the
did you
list is
just say,
available.
did you
Yes.
just say
You just said the
a
President
few seconds
Museveni.
ago
Yes.
that they are using willing buyer, willing seller
Yes.
policy?
No,
And
no.
Ibrahim Opondo ask you a question and say, if someone sells their land, how they choose to invest their money
No,
is
no.
their business.
No,
And
no,
in the name
no.
of the family
Say,
cheat.
they are hiding under. I just said they hide under the principle of willing buyer, willing seller, whereby the state failed to provide the necessary services. Now that people have got to look out for ways. If you have a dying mother, okay, dying with cancer, who should have been treated, and then you have a huge chunk of land, you are forced to sell
But
the
surely,
land. Are you willing seller? Are you willing seller? Or
You
you've
want
been
us to
forced
stop people
to-
from selling their
There is a story.
Sell.
There is
Now-
a story in the news. There is a story in the news concerning retired General Kayanja,
Kayanja, yes.
Eddie,
El Kayanja.
Who is buying my village
who
in
bought,
Bulindo?
yes, who's buying a village in Bulindo.
Yes.
Yes.
How much did he pay? 200 billion shillings. Surely a person who receives 200
And
billion
got
shillings.
it where?
No, no, no.
And
No,
he
just a
owns
minute,
the factory.
just a minute.
No, he owns the factory.
Hold a minute.
Mwanga,
Someone
the
who
other day
sells
we're also
land.
buying.
Eh? Someone who
what?
sells
We're also
land.
buying land.
Where?
In Wakiso.
I've not bought land for the last 5
Honorable Mwanga
years.
Chivumbi, somebody who buys,
want to-
receives
I know where
payment of
Arabi
land
is.
for 200 billion shillings. Surely they can make something out of that money.
Yes, that's what I've told you.
Yes.
Is that the Baryomwoosi, the liberators, and I was very specific in my submission, are now returning to the very people they wanted to liberate with huge amounts of money.
Yes.
Part of it stolen, by the way.
What are those huge
Part of
amounts of
it
money
stolen.
doing to the sellers?
Part of it stolen.
Mwanga,
And now they even fail to provide the necessary services. And then they find people who are dying. I think, you need to treat your mother.
Yes.
Let me pay you. Under the principle of willing buyer, and that's part of the problem. The other big chunk of land in Uganda, which has been called public land, has been grabbed for free. For free, and I can
Yes,
take
but
in part of my travel.
You can't
in
safely-
part of
yes,
the travel.
you can't safely draw a
I'm
line
moving into
between the two
areas.
arguments. Yes.
I'm moving to areas which were public land. Individuals
But-
got
but-
for free,
But the-
and they are evicting
You don't know in
people.
Uganda where they sell land.
Which one?
You don't know in Uganda.
You see the difference between Uganda and Karamoja and your area
Chigezi.
and the Chigezi area. The difference is the awareness.
But Honorable
But I don't want to elaborate.
So who is more aware?
Mwanga,
Who is more aware?
Let's take a break. When we come out of the break,
Honorable Mwanga,
It's the level of awareness.
Honorable Mwanga.
let's take a break. We'll pick this up.
I think I come from another where. Mobilization.
You're still watching NBS Frontline featuring Minister for ICT and National Guidance, the Honorable Dr.
Not ICT.
Chris.
I am not
Not the theater, no, ICT and National Guidance.
Ssemuju is adamantly refusing the guidance.
Guidance, absolutely.
George Muhimbisa is watching us and says, George claims that his message is now short, but it's actually not short. He says, political intolerance is such a bad thing. An eye for an eye will make the whole world blind. When the late General Tumwine was alive, he made a statement that police had a right to kill intolerance. A few years later, he died and some people celebrated intolerance. Among them included the late Chakana Naduli, whose video went viral we're celebrating. A few weeks later, Jacana, who celebrated Tumwine's death, too dies. Before we pick lessons, the Chair Human Rights Commission writes a statement condemning violence at the burial of Jacana. But the same commission has been silent amidst disappearances of NUP supporters. Denial of bail to the 2 MPs, etc. What a country. When God finished creation, after 7 days, he looked at the world and he was satisfied. I think when General Museveni looks at this and reflects 36 years back, he says, this is the mess I have created. Just sad. You'll have someone respond to you on that, George Muhimbise. Someone is asking here, how do we move from rhetoric to addressing the real issues? Another viewer here says, who is this? What we see in Uganda is whenever there is any kind of demonstration, whether for a good reason or not, people are always stopped by police. Sometimes the army is called to quell the whole thing. Whereas the police is supposed to watch them as they demonstrate. They can even escort them up to where they are going. But when our police stops them, human beings, they become violent because they follow what is written in our constitution. This message is not very clear, and it's fairly long. I can't take all of it. Maybe you need to send. Michael Bagonza is watching us. He says, I wish to salute Honorable Ssemuju for having his facts on his fingertips, his boldness, and his being very civil in representing his arguments. That's Bagonza, Michael, who's watching us. Thank you. I'll take one more message. This is Karama from Chiboga. He says, I know of people here where Uganda Land Commission allocated 30 square miles to one single individual in Ngoma, where one late man has 40 square miles. The public land, which would have benefited many Ugandans, Land Commission gives away to those who give money to commissioners. You need to prove this, Mr. Karama. He says, a whole sub-county goes to one single person. There is need to reclaim back some of that land and make a better economic balance to Ugandans who have no land at all, which will ease the anger of the Buganda dwellers. That's Karama, he says he's in Ngoma. Which government has ever had a policy of committing crime, Dr. Baryomwoosi? Remember, one of the reasons the Okellos overthrew UPC government, that persons, especially Luzira, were full of Acholi sons and daughters. Indeed, it was true, meaning that the government wasn't condoning criminality. I hope you make sense of that. Another viewer here says, it's a pity that the leaders from Uganda have chosen to hide in politics and music, leaving their electorate behind as other people involved in farming and educating their children. There are many messages, but I can't take all of them. Let's move on to the political mobilization. We already see signs of that political mobilization happening. Some people point that to preparation for 2026. You had the Buganda caucus. Ibrahim Chitata, whom I interviewed for NBS Face Off last week, said he's beginning to move across the country, also doing mobilization, want to reawaken what was happening. And we discussed this with Ofono Pondo, that trying to get back to Buganda and say, the NRM performed poorly in Buganda this time around, how do we need to begin the remobilization? I know in FDC you're also doing your own mobilization. So what exactly are you doing at the FDC?
The FDC is, you've not framed the way it is. We are doing stock taking. After the general elections, we've been going around to FDC leaders. This time around, all those who stood in the last elections, from sub-county to district, to those who are heading FDC branches, to speak to them about elections. We've been to northern Uganda, to eastern Uganda, to western Uganda. We've concluded these interactions with Uganda. And the discussion is about the nature of elections in Uganda. Do we continue with these elections the way they are? What do we need to do? Because we lost a national conversation about elections. I remember it must have been either the 6th or 7th Parliament when there was a committee headed by former Judge Justice Augustine Ishimi, who used to represent Mitiana. to look at the violence. Parliament used to look at violence in elections. I think that has almost ended. So the interaction that the FDC has been having are not interactions to prepare for the next elections. Are not actually interactions to win a particular region in Uganda. They are just interactions to with the FDC people who stood for elections and the FDC leaders. But the conversation, the internal conversation is about the meaning of these elections. Okay. That you field candidates, either the NRM will buy them off or they are beaten, they are shot at, you're not allowed to do campaign, and then asking ourselves whether it actually makes any sense anymore to participate in these elections. So that's what we have been doing.
So what exactly are you saying? Because I've also had the Honorable Salam Musumba make a similar comment, especially at the time you're having the by-election in Kasese. Said, and your party president, or has talked about that. Are you suggesting that FDC could decide either not to participate in elections, future elections? Salam Musumba said you could actually, you're consulting, and if your members tell you that you no longer need to exist as a political party, you may not exist as a political party.
No, there's no way I'll say what the party will decide, but these interactions are going to be concluded by the sitting of the FDC National Council, which will process the views collected so far, and then subsequently the FDC Delegates Conference. And the party will make a decision. Do we want to continue with these elections, or we want to do what the others have done? In Sudan, when they wanted to remove Bashir, they didn't wait for an election.
What did they do?
You don't know what they did. Bashir was chased like a chicken thief. It happened in Tunisia. So this discussion is there, and the Constitution allows that if you have a government that descends into criminality, citizens have a duty through civic actions to go and cause the removal of that government. It is in the Constitution.
You've been promising that for some time.
In Libya, it took them 43 years to remove Gaddafi. They didn't stop. So if it has taken us 3 decades or 4, the aspiration will remain that we want an accountable government that is not going to cheat elections. So we cannot stop because we have not achieved it this year or next year, then we go home and sleep.
Mr. Fonopon, I want to come to you. We had just a brief discussion about this last Thursday, but today you also commented about it, that what is the party doing to mobilize Uganda where it's ceded ground?
Before I go there, just respond to Honorable Mwanga Kivumbi on the big chunks of government land being taken. First of all, there are lawful procedures by which government offers its estate to people who want to do something. Only there could be government officials, there could be private people. But if you find that the procedure is not followed, there are avenues to challenge, to seek remedy. But also, if they take government land in Tororo, Robong sub-county, and they have not taken mine in Nganda, how does that affect me creating productivity on my land?
You poorer.
How can it make me poor?
Can I tell you how?
So,
you made
a point. You asked Baryomwoosi to. So, these are excuses. If they take some land in Chiboga, how does that affect my land in Achisunga and Mukono? How does it affect my productivity? Actually, I should take that advantage to produce more. If more people have left agriculture, I should actually now be going to agriculture because we shall be few. I will be producing and I will be having market.
Okay.
Now to your issue.
Let's go to the
as far as the NRM is concerned and the government is concerned, we are only 1 year since election, since we elected, about a year and a half. Our main focus is trying to implement our manifesto. Where we have made good achievements, we are consolidating. Where we haven't touched at all, we are opening up ground. And we are inviting Ugandans, we are mobilizing Ugandans to see the immense opportunity that Uganda today presents. because of stability, because of expansion of infrastructure, because of world market, because of the ongoing regional interconnectivity. We want to invite Ugandans, we're inviting Ugandans to see. And you can see from the level of both local and foreign investors coming to seek opportunity in Uganda expanding. That's where we are, implementation of our manifesto. Where implementation is weak, we are strengthening. And we are calling on Ugandans to raise their voices where things are not adequate so that we improve. So on the question of political mobilization for 2026, that's not yet our concern.
And
quietly,
where we see a lot of endorsements.
Yeah, quietly, officially, the NRM party, the Secretary General has talked, the chairman of the party at the national level has talked. We are not yet in that mood. But internally, the Secretariat is carrying out research on three levels. Areas where we lost. Why did we lose? What is the situation like? What needs to be done? Where we lost. Where we won. What are the things that we need to do to win even higher, to retain that support and improve it? And the third level, the people who are having contestations with us, how do we engage with them and possibly win them over? And fourth, our overall posture really is to ensure that the opposition, while they will remain, they don't present a serious threat to us. So that we don't give them room in any region where they are a stronghold. We are happy that FDC is no longer enjoying any area where they can call a stronghold. We evicted FDC in Teso, from Teso. We evicted it from Acholi. We evicted it from Western Nile. There has been a displacement vector. Rukunjiri, Kasese, now we are 50-50 by representation and so on. So we are very happy.
And then Nupu evicted you from Uganda?
Nupu evicted us from Uganda, and that's why I started with the first one, where we lost. Why did we lose? Why did we lose? What do we need to do? So for us, that's at that level. We are at the level of research, of analysis. And I'm very happy that Honorable Ssemuju, from what he has presented, they are almost giving up on the democratic political engagement.
Okay. They
are now contemplating going back to 2001. You remember when former Nganda lost that election, and he fled. Because he's now saying Article 3, the Constitution allows us to go and evict a government which is turning criminal. If a government is turning criminal, there are elements of criminality. There are legal ways you can challenge the actions of government, including these things we are describing. Unlawful arrest, high-handedness, things that are not consistent with the law. You can. That's what the Constitution. But if your bosses, Honorable Ssemuju's bosses, and yourself think that you can take extrajudicial political action, we wish you well. We are watching.
Just a quick comment, and we'll be continuing this conversation on Afro Mobile after a few minutes. So I'm going to divide 3 minutes between Dr. Baryomwoosi and Honorable Mwanga Chivumbi. Then we continue the conversation. Some people are pointing me and saying I should be reading some of the responses to your tweet. And they're asking, why didn't you ask who arrested Jakana before you made the tweet that you made? But Dr. Baryomwoosi,
he was arrested by state agents and produced in court.
Yes.
So
it is
why
your
should
party.
you ask what you know?
How many after?
That is in power.
After how many days?
Hold it, Honorable Ssemuju. Where we have seen the most political activity, looking at 2026, endorsements of your party chairman and president to run again, not just to run again, but to run as sole candidate. We see also the MK Brigade and Ame and others.
There's another MK.
There's another
Which
MK here.
No,
All that activity is happening in your party. Are you positioning yourself?
guns.
You have 1 minute so that he uses the other minute.
these are enthusiasts who on their own express their political positions, but as a party, like O has said, we are not yet there. People in Kanu can say, Dr. Baryomwoosi want you back in the parliament and so forth. People are free to do those. But as a party, we are focusing on what we pledge the people of Uganda. For instance, we're now
In the
focusing...
Mitoma, it was General Tafire, it was the Vice President, it was Minister for... So those are enthusiasts who don't know.
Yes, they are also
Who don't know that
enthusiasts
you
in
have a
government.
manifesto to
They are also
implement.
enthusiasts in the government.
And they don't know you have a
Now I'm
manifesto.
speaking to you as the government and the NRM.
So these ones don't know you have a manifesto.
No. Time will come when we shall go into politicking. But for now, we are mainly focusing on the parish development model.
Thank you.
And if I can...
No, we'll have time to discuss that.
the comment which Honorable Ssemuju was vulgarizing, that when you move towards Mityana, towards where you still find hunters. I have seen them. And I'm saying, why don't you put your energy or mobilize people in Uganda to go into production? The youth who go into the town. Why should food coming to Kampala come from Mbale, from Isinjiro, from where? When in the hinterland of Kampala, we can grow tomatoes, and that was the point.
But if they were Chiga in Kampala, why shouldn't food come from Kampala to feed their
First and foremost.
If that's negative energy
because of time, what you're doing in NOP to mobilize. You said you're
As the chairperson of
So
Uganda
violence,
Caucus,
just put
I
violence
don't
on the
boldly
land.
speak for NOP. NOP has a program called the Kunga Uganda. It's ongoing. We're also in a conversation with like-minded forces to extend the frontiers. Okay? Now, you and you. Buganda can't settle for less like your people. I can tell you his area is the net exporter of askaris. And when I go to his village, there are grass thatched houses. When we went for the burial of Olanya, and when you travel to Greater Northern Uganda, meaning his area, all you see
is from Tororo.
I know, it stretches all that area.
It's the same. He says it's the same.
No. It stretches all that areas. People live in medieval times. That's why I use the word awareness. His area is the net export of maids in Kampala. The biggest market of maids is in Imbarara. I know. Now, Buganda,
What do you expect?
and they're saying there are no quotations. now, I'm telling you the truth. If you want a maid, you call your area or Umbarara.
My mate is...
If you want an askari,
My
you
mate
call
is-
Teso, you call
Fotororo.
you call Arua, you call where?
So if
Buganda,
if
and I can straight for you.
the entire country is sharing in that misery, what is the cost of the
So I was answering him to say
No, what is
Buganda
the
has
source-
issues. No, you are speaking about people
What
who are
is the source of the contention?
importers of askaris and maids. So this whole thing is Ugandan in nature, is national in context.
So what do you
Don't
expect
even
from
place Uganda on it and say it is only in Uganda. So I'm perfectly aware you are not aware of what is happening. If I travel even your askari, forget about the soldiers. Sambaman should be from somewhere. His cousins are sleeping in grass thatched houses. All of them. Yours.
negative energy?
Yours.
People
I'm
here.
afraid we need to
Now you
continue
want
this
Uganda
conversation.
to settle for askari?
We need to continue this conversation on the Afro Mobile App. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.